Welcome back. I'm speaking with Rob Wallace. He is an evolutionary biologist and public health expert visiting the Institute of Global Studies at the University of Minnesota. We are speaking about the Zika virus and the ways in which our current economy contributes to viruses like Zika virus and the spreading of it. So, Rob, let's just tackle it. How is the neoliberal economy impacting on viruses of this sort?
Well, there's been a lot of focus on how climate change affects the spread of mosquitoes and Zika, but I think there's been very little attention on how deforestation and mining and logging has had an effect. And those things are at this point been increasingly driven by a broader economy that is digging deep into the forest. It's monetizing the great forests of the world. It's monetizing subsistence farmers in such a way that multinationals want the land and they're expropriating it back and backed by big finance. And we're talking sovereign wealth funds and governments, but also private equity in the forms of agribusiness and agri-food companies and private institutional investors like mutual funds, banks, pension funds, hedge funds, private equity funds. And they're all land grabbing, all accelerating the deforestation and development with real world consequences upon the resulting epidemiologies. And from that perspective, it isn't just Brazil or sub-Saharan Africa we need to focus on. It would be better to characterize New York and London and Hong Kong, among other sources of capital, paying for deforestation as some of the world's worst disease hotspots, because their finances are driving the deforestation, which is allowing pathogens that were previously marginalized to come to the fore and become regional and even world powerhouses.
And how do we know that this is not a natural wave of the evolutionary impact on societies, communities, countries?
Right. Well, that's a very good question. I mean, the notion of causality is a difficult one. And pathogens have been around, certainly, obviously, before capitalism. So viruses and bacteria and such have their long evolutionary histories. But in this case, humans have gotten to the point that they represent an almost geological force on the planet. And our capacity to make significant changes on the landscape such that all animals and everything from our primate relatives all the way down into the most smallest microbes are in the business of adjusting to the changes that we're imposing on the planet. And there are huge literatures dedicated to showing how specific changes in the forest brought about by deforestation or logging has led to the increase in species of these mosquitoes that are able to pass on and increase and lead to spikes in disease outbreaks.
And it seems to me from reading some of the material available from scientists, they're reluctant to make the link between climate change and the virus. Why is that?
Well, there's some good reasons, and I would say there's some bad reasons. The good reasons are that it's a long cascade of causes, and you have to try to link each one up to the next. I think it's been at the same time. I think there's been growing understanding that indeed there are these connections, and the issue though of trying to connect it to what is causing the climate change or what is causing the deforestation is another matter, because then you get into the kind of political economy of research. It's very difficult to have a scientific career these days and to be able to pay your bills. And right now, some of the philanthropic foundations and government agencies are in a tight spot politically, and they're reluctant to fund studies that might try to link the broader economy to our shifts.
And as a scientist, you don't want to fall into that category of somebody who makes these connections.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a difficult road to go on that could lead to career suicide, and I think it's an open secret. I think a lot of people understand this. There are discussions in the hallways of various conferences of what is driving deforestation, the land grabbing, and the financial backing. But whether or not to actually turn that into, make it a part and parcel of scientific research, despite the fact that it could be a primary cause, is a difficult thing for a scientist to take on.
All right. Rob, I thank you so much for joining us and explaining all of this very complicated stuff to us. And we look forward to having you again.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.